you're, calling it from in the chat. And y'all see, we just got the recording notice. So just so you know, this will be recorded. So if there's anything you want to go back and check out once we've discussed it, we would love to send that y'all's way. But thank you so much for joining our Through the Eyes of a Recruiter session. So my name is Katie Butler, and I am one of the University Talent Acquisition Partners at Zendesk. So before we get started, again, while everyone's logging in, continue to put where you're from. And then also as a fun little icebreaker, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would you eat? I think about this a lot. Being from Texas, I think mine would be chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, and apple crisp. But it's not like I thought of it a lot about in my life before. So you can drop those in the chat as well. And before we get started with the panelists, a few housekeeping items. So it looks like everyone's muted, but go ahead and keep your mics muted just so we don't hear any background noise. You're more than welcome again to drop any questions you have in the chat. We'll be able to address those live with our presenters. We have some experts here today, so no question is too big or too small. This is also meant to be as interactive as possible. So you can throw emojis in the chat, questions, comments, concerns. We're here to help, right? So feel free to take advantage in any way that you see fit. This will be recorded and posted on our Talent Board website. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. So we'll start with Kathy. We'd love to hear your name, your role, and where you work.
All right. Well, thank you, Katie, and hello, everybody. Glad to be here. I'm Kathy Bowman. I am a talent acquisition manager at Catalina, and I head up the university and internship programs.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ashleigh McNair, and I'm a university talent acquisition partner at Zendesk. I work alongside Katie, actually. And I work at Zendesk as well.
Right, Rachel.
Yeah, I'm Rachel McIntyre. I actually have my own company of talent and career strategies, and I'm a talent acquisition consultant, as well as a collegiate college coach, career coach. And I'm currently working with Shutterfly right now, doing some work on their candidate experience.
Great. And I'm Lynnette, Souza-Falls. I am the corporate tech recruiter for Protelo. You're based in Northern California. Nice to meet everyone.
Wonderful. So as you see, lots of different industries, lots of different locations, but a great panel for y'all today. So friendly reminder again, if there's anything you'd like to hear more about, any questions that you have, you can drop them in the chat. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started and start talking a little bit about what recruiters do and how to help you throughout the process. So I guess my first question for the panel would be, what is a recruiter do? A lot of people think that recruiters all do the same thing at every company or all have the same, just different set of skills. Is that true? Do we all do the same thing? And anyone who wants to jump in.
I can start that. I think, at the end of the day, our end result is probably the same. We're all looking for talent, but I think just depending on the positions that we're recruiting for, I think our processes might be a little bit different. And I don't know if you guys want to chime in and if you agree, but the way in which we source for candidates could look a little different based on the positions, but we are also building relationships. I think all of us are. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Lynnette. I think especially in today's job market and with university, building up those relationships and giving that experience is really important. So yes, we probably all do basically the same type of steps, but making sure that we have those interactions is important.
Mm-hmm. Great. And let's start by talking a little bit about the screening process and how much control the recruiter has in the outcomes of the decisions. So a big question we've been seeing is how much control does the recruiter have in the hiring process? Recruiters don't have that much control, true or false?
I can jump in, and if you don't mind, I think that's false. I think we have the opportunity to advocate for our candidates when they're applying for roles. And I think that's a large part of our job is making sure that we're advocating, making sure we have a say in the process, since we are the first line of communication with a lot of candidates that apply. We have the opportunity to really get to know them in the beginning and be able to advocate for them through the process.
And I would agree. I mean, at the end of the day, we do understand what we're looking for in regards to talent. And our goal is to find the best talent for the ad to the organization. And with that, we do just that. That is what we are paid for, is to really identify those folks that we think are going to be the best ad. And so I know for me, in my world, you kind of have to go through me to get to the next level. And so I would say that most of us are in that situation. And it's a wonderful job, because to your point, we do get an opportunity to advocate for people and to be a partner to folks, as well as to our hiring managers.
Rachel, or let's see, that's Rachel. Kathy, I see you nodding your head quite a bit. Did you have anything to add on that point?
Yeah, no, I think both Ashleigh and Rachel hit it on the head. To build that relationship with your candidate is so important, to be that advocate. And you're there to advise not only the candidate but the hiring team as well. So getting to know the team, getting to know the manager, the role, and the candidate all fits together.
Yeah, I have one thing to add really quick, just from personal experience. There's been a few times where the hiring manager has actually said no to a candidate, and I really pushed back. And I think it takes experience as a recruiter to be able to do that, and a little bit of confidence to be able to push back and say, no, I really believe that this person has the aptitude. Sometimes they may not have the full skill set, but if they have the aptitude to learn, and you believe in that person, it's a matter of being able to kind of put that forward and being able to really speak for them. So that's worked a few times successfully. I just wanted to add that.
I see some hearts and some celebration emojis on that one. So thank you so much, Lynnette, for adding that. I think that really resonates with a lot of people on the call. And I see a question in the chat that kind of goes alongside this, this topic of the question itself. Is what are important skills that recruiters are looking for. And I know that's different per role and per kind of whatever role you're hiring for. But would anyone like to elaborate on what recruiters and skills recruiters look for or like to see when they're going through the hiring process?
I'm happy to jump in. I think one of the things I'll share is that when we're talking with students that are usually in undergrads, we're really looking for potential. And a lot of that is communication, teamwork, aptitude to learn, desire to learn, and to stretch themselves. And so at the end of the day, really one of the most difficult jobs I think for a recruiter is to discern that from a resume, when it really happens when you talk to that individual. I think as you move up through the process of masters and PhDs, we do start to look at the technical skills that go back with that, because that's going to be needed as those positions get more specialized for opportunity. And so we still look for all those pieces that incorporate potential. But at that point, we're going to be looking at very specialized skill sets that match what we're looking for today, but as important, what we'll need tomorrow.
And going off of that question, I would say, can we maybe have someone highlight some of the ways that we look at a resume before we talk a little bit about the conversations that we have when we screen? What can a student do to help improve their resume when it comes to applying to any particular role?
I think a good thing for the resume is to make sure your contact information is on there, your experience, your schooling, what major you're in, the skill set, putting these things where a recruiter is going to see it. I was just in another session with our interns at my company, and we were talking about, whether you're doing an ATS system that's just looking at the keywords, or you're physically the recruiter looking through all of these resumes, you only have this little glimpse of that whole page. So having the important things up top is so important. And what are those important things? Your contact information, your skills, your major, what you're focusing on, what type of role. Having that up top, then that leads me to go, oh, let me look down the page further and read some more and learn more about you.
I think also making sure that your resume is very tailored to the position you're applying for, if you know specifically, and making sure some of those keywords and skill sets are called out in your resume as well. Sometimes I'll do a search for a particular skill set, and if I don't see that, then it's a quick read. So you want to make sure that you have that based on the position you're applying for.
I also would add, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead for it. I was just going to go on.
And what I would also add is think about the projects you're most proud of that were in a team environment, the work that you've done. So whether it be an internship, a personal project, or a volunteer. The reality is we want to see the holistic picture of who you are, and skills are one aspect that is very helpful with the ATS, but just as important is knowing where you've spent your extra time and what does that look like, and how does that maybe align to what you want to do.
Yeah,
Ashleigh, you have anything to add there?
I don't. I think those are all really good points, actually. And that's exactly, I think, what we all look for when we're looking at resumes, because we look through so many, quick glimpse. You have to really see everything at one glimpse just to be able to move forward. So.
And going off of the topic that we're talking about, we just had a question in the chat that said, should candidates not mention any skill, technical or soft, that isn't related to the specific opportunity? So I think this goes a little bit into the resume, some of the soft skills or other technical skills. Should those be added, or would they just be kind of extra and maybe not needed?
I feel like having them in there is helpful, and kind of what Rachel, to piggyback what Rachel was saying, I think anything that you have done in the past that you're proud of should be showcased on your resume. It's important to have that. Now, if you, say you worked 20 years ago and you did something that's totally unrelated to a position you're applying for, maybe not necessary, but anything that you've done recently that you would like to showcase, for sure.
Yeah, I think what Rachel had mentioned about volunteering or any of the, all those skills translate to something, right? Were you the president of a club on campus, or, in your community, whatever, volunteerism, that all translates to experience. So definitely should not be left off.
Great. Well, let's pivot just a little bit and talk a little bit about LinkedIn and some of the best LinkedIn practices or best ways to reach out to different recruiters for roles that students might be interested in. So let's talk about, first of all, how to best connect via LinkedIn. Do you receive a lot of messages? Do you accept messages over LinkedIn? If not over LinkedIn, what types of touch points or requests would be the best way for a student to interact with you or other recruiters?
I can take this one. I think us all as recruiters know that we probably get a lot of requests on LinkedIn pretty often. And I try to be mindful about, the requests. One thing that I will say is anytime that you're messaging a recruiter, like if I get a message from a candidate and they're just sending me their resume, the first thing that I'll respond and say is like, did you apply for the role that you're interested in? Because a lot of times we can't move further in the process without an application. So one of the points that I would mention is if you are, looking to reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn via message or connect with them, and you're, asking for them to review your information, I would always say to apply for the role that you're interested in first, and then send a message and say, I applied, I would like to be considered for this position, and, give the information that way. That's just a tip that I have that I've picked up along the way.
And I was going to say, I think it's a great network
Yeah,
opportunity.
definitely a good point.
Mhm.
I, as a very veteran recruiter by trade, I accept every connection. Every connection that comes through, I will accept. Every message is a lot more difficult. And so what I would share with you is that do send the message, but don't be discouraged if you haven't heard from us. Because as you can imagine, we are managing not only LinkedIn, we're managing our email, we're managing the responses that we have through other avenues. And as much as we would very much like to respond to everyone in every avenue, it gets tough. And it's really a disappointment that I think our industry, that we wish we could do better, and we're working to do better, but it is definitely tough because there's only a certain amount of time in the day, and we too have a life and want to get out there and enjoy it.
And going a little bit off of that, still very related to the topic we're talking about in terms of trying to connect with the recruiters. Someone asked in the chat, how do you stand out from the crowd? And I'm assuming that relates to how you maybe do your first message to a recruiter, or what pertinent information outside of the application, but via LinkedIn message, that would be important to convey or to stand out from the rest of the group.
I always appreciate, oh, sorry.
No,
As-
go ahead.
I always appreciate when somebody, if they're reaching out to me because we've met at a career event or, some other type, or they just saw my, post, and dig in a little bit, find out what the company's about, like say something back to me that makes me realize that you know who we are and why you're connecting with us. That will make you stand out. I've had so many, do you know what we do? No. Well, tell me something that draws me in and that makes you stand out. You've got your elevator pitch, and then you say, oh, and I'm interested in an analytics role, and I see that your company has a lot of data and you're analyzing consumer behavior, whatever it is, but give something that gives me something to show that you're really interested and you've done a little homework.
Lynnette, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, even if, the recruiter doesn't have a particular opportunity for you, just saying, hey, I'm really interested in connecting with you. That's it. Just saying hi. I may not have an opportunity for you, but I might know somebody or know another recruiter or in my network that might have something for you. And myself, and I'm probably speaking for other recruiters too, we do kind of this matchmaking process in our head where we're like, oh, well, this person's really looking for, a software developer opportunity. I don't have something, but I know this other employer that is. Maybe I can do the matchmaking and connect people. I've done that, and that's been successful. Getting that person an opportunity, or at least an open door for them to have a further conversation about the positions they're looking for. So don't be afraid to network. I mean, if they don't accept your connection request, and right. So just put yourself out there and, connect with people and network. And that's the whole point of LinkedIn. Even if it's not for a specific goal, connections never hurt.
And I would add to Kathy's comment about elevator pitch. That would be a perfect time to put your elevator pitch into words, is in a LinkedIn, because once again, it gives us a really quick knowledge of who you are and what you're looking for and where your strengths are, so that we can be able to then, of course, follow up with what Lynnette's thought process is we know the information, it's in front of us. We don't necessarily have to go look at your LinkedIn, because sometimes that takes extra time. And we think about what we have and what others have.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked quite a bit about what to do, what's great to do when it comes to either your resume or your LinkedIn. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about maybe some what not to do or a pet peeve. So what are some just red flags that we see that's like, we might not want to do that either in an outreach or an application that students can avoid that might get them to the next step in the process?
being demanding. Find me a job. That's happened, right? So just being appreciative.
I would also go back to Kathy's comment and just reiterate that recruiters, I joke lovingly that we have the attention span of a gnat. And that's because we are working at fierce paces and trying to get things taken care of and done. We're usually multitasking as best we can. So I agree with Kathy in regards to the fact that putting what's most important at the top is very important, is key to your success. Because if we have to go look for things like what your major is or where you go to school, it's really, we lose interest. And so I really want to reiterate Kathy's comment about the top of your resume is the most important area. Use the space wisely.
Yeah, and I'll go back to that elevator pitch comment I made. It's an elevator pitch. It's short, it's concise. It's not, you know, I'm going to speak from experience being at a career fair where, you know, 300 people are walking by your table or stopping or getting online. You don't want to eat up 10 minutes talking about every project you've worked on or in-depth. Elevator pitch. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is my expected graduation. This is what I'm interested in. And then that prompts questions.
Yeah, it was always described to me, you know, if you're stuck in an elevator with somebody going from one floor to the next, that's the time you have to explain yourself and who you are. So
I think all of that is really sage advice. So students make sure to, know what you're bringing to the table, practice your elevator pitches, depending upon the school or university or college that you go to. A lot of them have career centers or different individuals who are there to help you build that, your 30-second pitch, your 2-minute pitch, or your 10-minute pitch, depending upon how much time you have. So again, there are a lot of people at your universities or different schools who are there to help you build those and help you practice presenting those as you interview prep. And kind of switching gears just a bit, I think, and we, all of us recruiters are probably familiar with this, that there's sometimes some misconceptions about what recruiters do and the processes that we go through. So some students might be like, man, they don't, understand the role that they're hiring for. They just take a really long time. So we're here to kind of pull back the curtain and show you a little bit about what we do. So let's start. Ashleigh's laughing because we've talked about this before at Zendesk of like, I wish they just understood that we're here for them and we're trying to make the life easier. And there's a lot of things that we're dealing with in the background. So let's start with that. One of the points I made of students, you might be thinking to yourself, why is this process taking so long? Shouldn't it be a lot more simple? Why don't I know my status? Why is it taking so long to get back to me regarding where I am in the process? So panelists, would you share a little bit about the different players that take place in a role between hiring managers, timing with other candidates, some insight into what goes on behind the scenes that students might need to know or could be helpful to know as they prepare for the time that the interview process takes?
Yeah, I don't mind starting this off. I know everyone will probably have input, but yeah, just like you mentioned, Katie, I think it's important to note that there are so many people, or not too many, but there are people that are involved in the process. We have hiring managers that we're, communicating with to make sure that we're scheduling conversations with them. And there's other candidates in the process as well. I think that's important to note that sometimes there could be, don't know a number, just throwing out 10 candidates at a time that we're communicating with. We have to schedule phone conversations with, we have to get through the process as well. So I think it's important to note that there's many other people involved in the process. And a lot of times what can take time is scheduling and making sure that we're aligned with everyone's availability, because we're trying to find, especially when scheduling interviews, you're trying to find a time when everyone's available that can do an interview, or you're trying to wait until everyone's completed with one part of the process before we can move on. So those are just a few things. And I know there's probably more that others have to share.
That's definitely a big one, Ashley, the scheduling, right? I know for our organization, it starts off either the hiring manager or well, first you talk to the recruiter, then you go to the hiring manager or SME. Then there may be a panel, a couple people from the team or cross-functional teams. Aligning all of their schedules with all the candidate schedules, it's cumbersome. So it does take some time. So yes, a little patience goes a long way through all of that.
And I like to set the expectation up front. So in my first initial interview, I'll kind of give them an overview of what our hiring process looks like. Some of my positions I have kind of more junior level, but some of the senior level positions have multiple interviews. And I like to explain why we do it that way, who they're meeting with, and, kind of the time frame. So, kind of sets the expectation up front so that they know, kind of what they're getting into.
Rachel, anything to add there?
I will share with you, we talk about pet peeves and resumes and things. I do have to say, I understand the pet peeve from students who really just wonder what's going on. And I always challenge the teams that I work with to even respond or send a note that says, I have no new information. But we are still, or obviously you're still being considered. Because I think sometimes I think we forget sometimes what it feels like to be on the candidate side because we're working so fast and furious to fill those types of roles. But I do think a simple note goes a long way. And I always challenge the people I work with to, frankly, I used to take Friday afternoon and send quick notes to folks and say, when it came down to, I don't have any additional information, you are still on the radar. And so I really do challenge recruiters to do that.
And Rachel, with that comment, you bring up a really common misconception that recruiters only care about getting the role filled. They don't care about the candidates, which I certainly would say is false. So can you all shed some light on, that common misconception of recruiters just only worrying about getting the role filled, but maybe instead how we're really people and want to be there for students going through the process?
Well, for me personally, I've been a recruiter and I'm also a collegiate career coach. I think the one thing that most of us, and the reason why we're in this role, is because we do want to make positive impact to everyone we talk to. It is definitely a unique opportunity at the university level because there's just so much opportunity to mentor and share, and we do spend that time doing that. I think the second piece is that most of us work for the companies that we recruit for. And the bottom line is we want the best for the company as well. So we keep both those things in mind, what's best for the individual and what's best for the company. Because as I tell my teams when I've worked for them, the last thing I want is 6 months, a year from now, this person departing because it wasn't the best fit and they having to look for another job and we having to fill this role again, because there is a cost associated to that. So getting it right as best we can on the first run is just beneficial across the board for everyone.
Anyone else want to chime in with some of their thoughts on the topic?
No, I agree. I think, generally all recruiters that are in this field, we have to, care about people a lot and want to help and want to make a difference in order to do this job, because especially in university recruitment, we're really, helping students, get their foot in the door in their career. So being a part of that, I think is very rewarding, at least, speaking for myself, and I know others as well. So I definitely don't think we just care about roles being filled. We do have a job to do. So yes, filling roles is what we do, but we also, I think, a lot of recruiters out here really genuinely care about students and wanting to succeed.
Wonderful.
Yeah, one other thing I would add is over the years, I've hired a tremendous amount of folks. But one of the things I really enjoy is when they come back and they thank me for the job, and then they'll also ask me for questions. So because I was that first recruiter they've ever worked with, and they know that they can come back and I have their best interest. So I would encourage you to have good relationships with your recruiters, because they are a network in itself and can provide you with opportunities of maybe connections in other companies, but we always enjoy giving advice based on what we do and how we can help you be more successful.
Great. All right, so we've talked a little bit about reaching out through LinkedIn. We talked a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes and why recruiters do what we do and how we're there to help you all out. So let's transition into a little bit. Say you've made it to the phone screen. So you're officially a part of the process. We had a student in the chat ask during the phone screen, what should we mostly emphasize, or what are we asking? And then what should the student also be asking? So that first touch point, let's talk a little bit about the phone screen, that first touch point with the recruiter stage.
For me, it's just an initial conversation. You know, I can usually tell within the first 5 minutes if the person is going to work out for the position that I'm recruiting for. And it's really just to get to know them, you know, hear what their interests are, what they're looking for, and if I feel that they would be a good fit to move on to the next step of the process.
Yeah, definitely. That's where that, you know, some of that thoughtfulness that comes before you even get to that point for us as recruiters, understanding the role, understanding the team, understanding what the objectives of the role are, being able to tell you that and then have you come back and say, well, I've got this experience, I've done this, or this is where I want to grow. Being able to match that is really important. And again, asking those questions, right? You should come prepared to ask some questions of us. We're not there just to tell you. You're there to ask us about the company, about the role, about, you know, what your interests, your future interests lie. Make sure there's a good match there for you too. You're interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing you.
Yes, I love that point, Kathy. And I was going to bring that up as well, is just asking questions. I love when students ask me questions about the company or about, you know, the role, the team that they're working on, because it shows that they're interested and they want to know and make sure that this is a fit for them. And that's important, is making sure that this role that you're applying for matches what you're looking for. Will help, you know, you get through the process. It'll help you later on, when even if you're in the role and you find out later on that it might not work, asking those questions in the beginning and knowing that this is a fit for you at the beginning of the process will definitely help a lot.
And also, if when you're looking for that first permanent role, right, that first full-time role after school, you want to make sure that the culture aligns with what your beliefs are. I don't want to say beliefs, but, you know, your passions. If they're involved in a community effort and that's passionate for you, you know, just look at those things and ask those questions. Those are great, especially those first full-time roles.
And I think you've hit on a great point there. When we talk about asking about the company, as Kathy's mentioned, you come educated about what the company does, but to asking those questions about the culture, what are the principles that the company stands for? I also encourage you to ask about the university program and how have those individuals come in as, like, for instance, an intern, and how is that in conversion rates? Because one of the things that we want to make sure interns are doing is coming to companies that they're interested in, so that there's a mutual interest to move forward in a full-time role. And then as a full-time, I would ask questions about, is there a program for the university for full-time roles for university hires? How have or where have other university hires gone? How are they developed? Where have they moved to? How long that movement might be taking? Because one of the things you want to truly see is where the value is and how the company values what I would call their early career talent. Because it's really important. I think you need to be a part of a company that is looking to do that, to truly build not only their bench, but their leadership team. And asking questions about people's experiences and their trajectory is really helpful.
Great. And as we talk about the phone screens and starting to chat with the recruitment team, what are some of the most common questions that you're getting from students just throughout the process? Do you see any trends of what students want to know throughout the entire process? Ashleigh's laughing, so I know maybe some are coming to mind, but what are students asking these days? What do they want to know about the recruitment process or through the process?
I guess I can answer this. I know the number one question I get is, what is the interview process like? That's like number one. And I always start, like, before I even get to the, do you have any final questions? I make sure I cover that in the interview and let them know ahead of time, like, this is a process, so but that is definitely number one. And the other is about conversion. I think that's another one that I'm asked often is, is there room for me to grow even after my internship at this company? So that's definitely two that I get pretty much every phone call I have.
I will agree with those two. I'll also add, and I think there's been a shift too on the part of the students. What is the culture like at your company? Do you have, like Rachel was talking about, do you have leadership programs? Do you have mentorship? There's a focus that's shifting, which is great because that's what we want to see. So we've been seeing that question come up a lot about culture and growth.
Same.
So I had, in the same vein, but switching gears just a bit, I had a student direct message me. Is it bad when an intern declines the offer after accepting it? Do those candidates get blacklisted? So we call that a renege on the offer. So recruiters, if we want to talk a little bit about what that means when a student declines after accepting an offer and how that affects their standing. Rachel, you look like you have something.
I may be old school, but I actually think it is terrible to renege. I think that shows a part of your character and who you are and where your commitment level is. So personally, but I also realize that sometimes it just makes sense. Because the other thing is I think we all agree we want people that want to be at the company. And so that is important too. And I think you have to find that happy medium for yourself of what that looks like. I would say that people usually aren't blacklisted, or at least we don't have a database out in the cloud of blacklisted students. Not that we haven't thought about it, but I think that things change, decisions are made. But I think the one thing I would encourage students to think about is that it's the impact that you're making is, yes, you're making changing your trajectory for yourself, but you also are changing the trajectory of the company, because depending on when you renege that offer, we're either in a position where we're not going to be able to fill that role, or we're in a position which, if that's the case, that means someone didn't get an opportunity that could have had an opportunity. And so I think if that is something that you absolutely feel like you must do it as soon as possible, because at the end of the day, we really do want those individuals that want to be there, and we want them to, but we want to fill every role so that people have opportunities.
Yeah. I think that's where that relationship comes in with your recruiter too. Those conversations, be transparent. I'm interviewing with, my dream company. If that doesn't come through, you tell us, be honest with us up front that maybe there's some competition there. Just have that conversation beforehand. We actually had a candidate who accepted, then turned us down back in 2018. And just recently came back into the pipeline, graduated now, has got some experience and was looking for a job. And we were like, we know this name because we do have memories. And he got hired. So we don't blacklist people, but do ask the question. But I will call out one thing, because we did have a situation with a school. Find out what your school's policy is. Some schools have an integrity policy, and you do not want to get blackballed at school or suspended from any kind of future activities. So do check out your school's policies.
I was going to say too, communication, kind of what you were saying, Kathy, communication is key for sure. And it's how you communicate. Things come up, things change, and just how you communicate and go about, letting your recruiter know is important. Whether you're going to, I have, so blacklist in the recruiter world is a DNU. Usually do not use. That has happened a few times just based on the lack of communication in which took place. So if you're professional about the change of plans, then more than likely we will consider you for other opportunities in the future.
Yeah. Be professional, have respect, and
Right.
what you need to do.
And if you can help us find another candidate,
Yeah.
that's even better.
We love referrals. Yeah.
We do. And at that point, we really do want to fill that role and give someone an opportunity.
I think the overarching theme is a little bit of like, we're going to treat you with respect, and we hope that you treat us with that same level, because the more open and honest we are with one another, the easier we're going to both get to the point where we get what we all want, right? Win-win-win. So being open and honest, it just makes the process easier on everybody. And speaking of being open and honest, let's talk a little bit about negotiations and salary. So I got a question that says, if a company states that the salary for a role is competitive, but does not publish it, why won't recruiters share that salary with us? And I know some places have different, transparency levels on what they can share. I know Ashleigh can probably touch on ours, but let's just talk a little bit about what we can and can't share in terms of salary, and what we can share about basically the offer before we actually put in the offer.
Yeah, I can start this off. I know at Zendesk, we're very transparent about salary and pay for our position, so that will, if you ask, it'll come up, but I usually will share that information in the phone screen, just because I know I want this to be an opportunity that you want to do, and I want it to fit what you're looking for. And a lot of times I know some states, have laws that they're passing where they're required to put the pay on a job posting now. I know that's the case for Colorado. And I think recently New York will start doing that, but a lot of times that will be on there already. But I think kind of there's a shift in this way of doing things where a lot more companies are starting to be transparent about pay, because that's kind of a hot topic right now. That's what, candidates want to know, is like, what is the pay, compensation and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, we don't want to waste your time or our time, right? So let's make sure that we're aligned. I think it's, as Ashleigh said, it's become a lot more transparent for a lot of companies. There's no point going past that phone screen if it's not going to align.
I think one of the things I would share with you with interns and or students is keep in mind that pay is not everything. We definitely have to pay the rents, and we do have to pay tuition and things of that nature. But I would highly encourage you to think about the overarching package. So what is available? What's the role potentially? What is their internship program? Where are development opportunities? What is the long-term opportunity? Because at the end of the day, pay is one component. And it is transparent, as most companies will be. So mentioning, Ashleigh was mentioning California is another example of they're required to share with you. So if you ever find yourself interviewing for a job in California, you can say, they ask, what's your salary expectations? And you can say, what is the range? And they do have to tell you the range. But I do want to encourage you to think of it as a whole package of opportunity, as well as pay, because some companies will also offer relocation. They'll also offer a bonus of some sort. It just varies depending, because we want to be competitive, but not every company can offer at the same level as some of the other companies. And so what we try to do is offer other things that could be as valuable, like development opportunities, like mentorship and things of that nature, that you can benefit from.
And I do want to note we have about 13 minutes left. So if you have questions that we haven't talked about yet, feel free to drop those in the chat. But we just had a really great question asked in the chat regarding referrals. So someone asked, do referral candidates shine more in recruiters' eyes than a different or normal candidate? Is there any difference? If so, do you seek advice in getting a referral? So I know that was a bit of a loaded question, so we can start with the first part. Do referred candidates shine more in a recruiter's eyes than any other normal applicant?
I guess I can speak. For me, I don't think so, to be quite honest. I think ultimately what I'm looking for is someone that can, fit the role and matches the role that I'm recruiting for. If the referred candidate matches that, then that's great. But I would never put a referred candidate over someone that applied through the website that may not know anyone at the company. Just speaking from experience, I've worked places that did do that, but and some companies are very referral heavy. But I think, for me, I'd like to be equitable on that, and I wouldn't put a referred candidate over another.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Lynnette, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kathy.
No, I was just saying, I agree with that. A employee who works here who refers somebody, they're going to know what the environment's like, what the culture's like. Hopefully they know a little bit about what the job is. Maybe they don't. So that referral may not be appropriate. So yeah, I totally agree with Ashleigh. But usually it'll be somebody that they think will fit good in the environment too. Maybe not that role, but
Yeah, like a cultural or personality fit is kind of what we're looking for in a referral. If they have the skill set, great. I mean, that's ideally what we're looking for. But also, if their personality fits with the culture that, and the position that we're looking for, they know that person on a personal level, then that's something that we consider.
I think, and I'll just throw in there, because I truly think Ashleigh has a really important point. In regards to being equitable, I think that's what's most important. So there is no doubt we as recruiters get friends and family referrals on a regular basis. And the reality is they go through the exact same process as any other candidate. So at the end of the day, we are making choices for what's right for the organization. And if they get any additional treatment, it might be because we want to ensure that there's equity within the organization, there's diversity within the dynamics, and we're looking for how do we look for the best ad. And so I think that's an important line is how do we look at this team and add individuals that are going to bring a different view, a different experience to the team. And so those may adjust depending on what that team dynamics is. And especially as we're hiring students into full-time roles. I will always encourage you to find someone, if you know someone, to apply through the employer referral program, but do know you will be going through the same process everyone else is. Because we do want it to be a very equitable experience for all.
Great. And I have about 2 questions that I know I want to ask the panel, but if anyone has any other questions, about 9 minutes, so go ahead and throw that in there. But one question that we have is about cover letters or portfolios, additional documentation. Are they necessary, and do you read them or look at them?
I can start this off. Some of the roles that I recruit for are creative roles, where a portfolio would be necessary. And I do view that beforehand just to, make sure that they have a portfolio and that it's visible. The hiring manager can view it. I would say it's really up to the role that you're applying for, to be quite honest. If maybe more technical roles or design or anything that requires a portfolio, yes, you would put a portfolio, or for technical roles, you'd have your GitHub link or something like that. But it really depends on the role. I think most roles that aren't, geared toward having additional projects or anything like that, they probably won't add that. But for what I've seen for any creative or technical, I've definitely seen additional portfolios and stuff added to the resume.
Mhm. Definitely, and definitely not a mandatory requirement, but in a cover letter, you can also explain your story a little bit if there's a gap of employment, or if you decided to travel abroad for a few years or something like that. You can go ahead and kind of explain your story a little bit more in a cover letter. And yes, we do read them.
Wonderful. Well, I have one more question for the group before we let everyone go. And I think this is a really great one to end on, and we can give everyone a second to think about it. But what do you wish candidates or just people in general knew about being a recruiter or recruiting? So what's the one thing that you wish people could understand or know or think about when it comes to recruiters? And if you need to say, if someone has it off the top of their head, but they can go ahead, but you need a second to think about it. I know that's a big question.
We do care.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to just broadening that care out. Is at the end of the day, we want it to be the best possible match. And we want that because we do care, and we want people to enjoy what they do and what they're going to do, because working takes such a large part of their life. And so we want to make sure they're enjoying that. I think on this other end, we want the company to be successful. And the bottom line is, I don't want to have to fill this role 6 to 8 to 12 months later. And so for us, it's really about that add that the individual brings to make the overarching team and company successful.
No, we care about the candidates, and we care about the company. We're company brand ambassadors, right? We're out there stomping for our company, talking about our EVP. We care about where we work, and we care about who we bring in, and we want to do the best. So it's definitely care incorporates it all.
Mhm.
And I lied. We got one more question in the chat that brings up a really good point. Unfortunately, we have 5 minutes left so we can answer it. So someone asked about hiring timelines and when hiring starts for next summer. And how can interns, I know a lot of times companies only maybe keep up their roles 1 to 2 weeks. So how can a student make sure they don't miss out on the time to apply? And when does recruiting for next summer normally start? It could be different for everybody.
Well, is it for us, for summer, it doesn't start until the spring semester. So career events, and then we post our jobs to have them ready for those career events. That's for internships for the summer. And we put them out on, Handshake, our own career post. We've got a group on LinkedIn that's specific for interns, so they can go there. We share out all that information. So wherever we can post them, we do post them, so they're out there, and we try to let everybody know about that.
I'd agree with that. Usually around August, September, just based on experience, is when it really starts for the next summer. So around that time, you'll definitely see more recruiters posting on LinkedIn and on Handshake. A lot of universities are having events in their career fairs around that time as well. So definitely around that time is when you'll see a lot of pickup. And check with your school as well, your university, and check and see when they're having events, and check on Handshake, because Handshake is a very good resource if you're not using that, because companies are posting, events, career fairs and things like that all the time. So
And my suggestion too would just be start working on your elevator pitch, your materials, your resume over the summer, because there have been some roles we've kept up like 4 business days and we get so many applications. It's a really nice problem to have, but we just go ahead and take it down. So make sure to be proactive, because we don't keep our roles up for months. They're up and then they're down. And a really great way to keep track is by putting LinkedIn alerts on. If you want to be a software engineering intern, put a LinkedIn alert on, just so you don't miss those items, because they don't stay up pretty long. And so if you have all your materials prepared now, it's going to be easier for when you start putting in those applications. But just make sure that you correct where you're applying. don't, if we see a different company in the cover letter, we're going to be like, so just double check all of your items. All right. Any final thoughts before we close it out? Don't leave. We're going to announce who won the little gift cards and things. So before we close out, but any final remarks from our fabulous panelists?
I wish you all the best, and I encourage you to network. And the earlier the better you start in the process, the more options you'll have.
We'll be looking for all your connections on
Yeah.
LinkedIn today in our inboxes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining this session, and shout out to our incredible panelists, Ashleigh, Rachel, Kathy, and Lynnette. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom. We're going to go ahead and announce the winner of today's session to get the resume reviewed by one of our talent board members. The winner today is Bree Glover. So congratulations, you're getting your resume reviewed by Joy Osborne from Zwift. We'll connect you both and email you later this week. But for now,
chime in and say that I am a recruiter, so I would actually love if you could offer it to someone else who really would need this.
Wonderful. Bree, thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll go ahead and select that student offline, and we'll email you. So everyone keep an eye on your email. But Bree, thank you so much. That recruiters care, y'all. I promise. Recruiters care. That proves it right there. That proves it right there. So all right, all join us next week for our resume workshop, and check your emails with the links to register. We'll only be having one workshop next week on Thursday, July 7th. There'll be no workshop on Tuesday, July 5th. So enjoy your long weekend, enjoy your holiday, connect with us on LinkedIn. If you have questions, we're here to help, but happy application season. And thank y'all so much for joining. We hope you have a great holiday.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, y'all.